Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff, and Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, everybody, to another Wednesday edition of the 3324 podcast live. You're here with Dean, and this way...
Hello, everyone.
It's Eric.
Yeah. How you all doing?
So, awesome. Hope everyone's having a great evening. If you could, if you're with us right now, do me a favor, just throw a hello in the chat just so we know who's here. We can say our hellos to you and welcome you. As we share our guilty pleasures. So if you would, just give us a hi in the chat, and we'll throw a hello back at you. So how are you, Eric?
I'm good. How was
you
your
doing
day?
Well? Oh, busy, and this heat is absolutely insanity.
Yeah, it's going to be a scorcher this summer, I think. Yep.
It's absolutely insane already. It's crazy.
Yep.
I'm just going to double check that we're live, hopefully. Haven't seen any... yeah, we are live. And there's some comments. There we go. Are you seeing anything? There we go.
No.
We got Dwight. Hey, Dwight. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Dwight. Hey, Kelly.
Sean. Let's show these on the stream. We're working on that. What's up?
There's Dwight. What's up, guys? Hey, how you doing?
Elizabeth Hart Navarro saying triple hi. Sean, yo, man.
Yo, man.
Casey, how are you?
Casey
good
Bauer.
to
How are you,
we can't see you, so I can't really say good to see you, but I'll reply in kind. Great to see you. I'm looking right at you. And Kelly's there. There we go. Cool. Oh, good.
So who do you got on the background there? Who's the guy
Oh,
with the hat?
we'll get to that.
Oh, we'll get to that. Okay. All right.
We'll get to these. We'll get to these purple hair.
Okay.
Hey, Jim. Hello from Boulder. Jim sent me, or I see the pictures that Jim posts, and it's still like he's posting pictures of snow. And I'm like, okay,
And it's
May. Yeah, like we were done. We were done. I was done with snow. I'm usually done with snow like the day after Christmas. Honestly, like in my mind, the day after Christmas, I don't need to see snow.
Yeah.
It's a holiday thing. Which you know what? When we'll do a Christmas songs episode, I'm sure I will go on that rant and get on top of that soapbox.
Thought I missed it living in Florida all those years, but coming back and dealing with it.
Yeah.
You know.
After the first one, you're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, nice to look at, but anyway.
Yeah, nice to visit,
All right.
but wouldn't want to stay. Cool. So thank you everybody for joining. We appreciate it. We always appreciate the support. We've got we're going to do some housekeeping. We've got a new episode coming out tomorrow, which is, we talk about one of my favorite albums of all time, which is Queen, and it was the album The Works, which, not a lot of people you wouldn't think that, or you may not know much off of it, but for me, it was a very influential album. We also talk about Live Aid, because you really can't talk about The Works without talking about Live Aid. So we appreciate all of your support. It means a lot to us. We are very close to another milestone as far as total downloads. So if you can share it on your news feed and anybody else that you can get to kind of come along on this ride with us, we have a blast. I thoroughly enjoy interacting. I look forward to the live shows because it's just I love the interaction, and I love hearing the feedback from everybody. And it makes for a great conversation, because you know what? I mean, God knows Eric, after 15 episodes, is probably tired of me. He's probably getting tired pretty quick. I'm like a firecracker. I have a fuse, and once the fuse is gone, that's it.
Well,
it's like a limited time, right?
No, that's not the case at all. It's sometimes, the only feedback I get is the fact that you won't let me talk.
What?
So
no.
sometimes you
what?
won't let
What do
me
you mean
talk,
I won't let you talk? What do you mean cut you off?
And that's been the kind of feedback I've been hearing. But I don't know. I don't think that's true, though. I think
so. We will, before we get, so we will do an episode called
Eric
Dean.
Talks.
Dean, shut the hell up.
Dean, just shut the hell up. Get sit in the corner. And just
It will be a video episode though, just to prove that I'm there, and I'll just nod, just to show that I'm there, that I am shutting up, that it's just not Eric doing it by himself.
Give us a couple of those, and all of that.
A thumbs up, or I agree, or no. We'll definitely do that. So awesome. All right, well, let's get cracking on this. This is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about it. Actually, it's kind of taking up a lot of my thoughts about like. Yeah, that's right. Nobody puts me in the corner.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm already in the corner.
It is like I can just see you sitting there. You probably are sitting at a little desk in the corner.
I am
like Bob Cratchit.
I am. This is not as glamorous as it looks, and if it doesn't look glamorous, it's even less so in person. So when we decided to do guilty pleasures, I really started thinking a lot about it, and I want to put this out there, and I want everybody to think about it. And of course, we want to hear from you first before we kind of go into our stuff. Yeah. But when I was thinking about guilty pleasures, I kind of broke it up into a few categories. So what I'll do is I'm going to actually put it on the tick. We're going to open up the ticker, and we'll get that going. Okay. And this way it'll be easy for everybody to see what my thoughts were, right? Of how I'm thinking about this. So the first thing I thought about when I was thinking about guilty pleasures is, well, what makes up a guilty pleasure? Is it songs you liked when you were young, but now that you're older, you don't listen to that stuff anymore, right? So I was thinking about, is that a guilty pleasure? Songs you liked when you were young, but you're kind of embarrassed about. Number two is songs or artists. Oops, let me capitalize. Songs that your friends don't know you like.
That's interesting.
So if there's like a if someone, I was thinking like some people that are like diehard metal fans and everything's like metal, and then all of a sudden you found out like they liked ABBA. Yeah. Or something like that, right? Yeah. So when I was thinking about it, it's like, okay, songs you liked when you were young, maybe, and then your tastes get more elevated, as it were, and that's silly kid stuff. Mm-hmm. Number two, I was thinking about, well, songs or types of artists or music that your friends don't know you like, right? And then the third one was like songs that are currently true guilty pleasures, meaning that don't fall into any of the other two categories, right? A song that really has nothing to do with that you liked when you were young, has nothing to do with songs that your friends don't know about you, but something that really truly like you don't admit to.
Because people will what? Give you stuff for it?
Maybe give you grief about it, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure. It depends on what kind of friends you have too. If you're afraid you're afraid. So let's get started. Well, why don't we start this way? Let's hear from the chat. Stuff you liked when you were young that you don't listen to now. And let's see if we can narrow this down. So what kind of stuff did you listen to when you were young that you don't necessarily listen to now? Not that you're embarrassed, but like I said, your tastes have grown and you're listening to other things, and that's not what you listen to anymore. So why don't you throw that in there? John Rosari, Bay City Rollers come on the radio. I won't change the channel. You know what? I agree.
There you go. Yeah.
Especially not everyone knows the SATUR Saturday Night, but actually they did a really good version of "I Only Want to Be with You," which I really dig. And then "Money Honey" they did. And actually, Les McEwen, who's the lead singer, he just passed away like a month ago. Very sad loss for Bay City Rollers, and they were gigantic. Bay City Rollers were everything. For Kelly, for me, I would think it would be something I liked when I was young. Okay, so Kelly's kind of going already with the guilty pleasure of associating it with things that she liked when she was younger, not necessarily maybe something now that she listens to and would be hesitant to reveal, like, oh, I'm a Taylor Swift fan, or I'm this or that, and people wouldn't think that. What about you, Eric? What did you listen to when you were a child? I have a memory. I have a memory of when I first met you.
Do you? Okay.
Yes. So why don't you?
When I was, I grew up in a house. I mean, everything was pretty much old school for me. I mean, I grew up listening to big band stuff. Glenn Miller, and because my uncle upstairs had records. My grandmother and my grandfather lived downstairs, so we would that kind of music was playing all the time. So it was either that or John Denver. My mom was a huge John Denver fan, so I became a John Denver fan as like almost by default.
Yep.
And just old rock and roll. My dad was a big doo-wop fan, so he had a lot of 45s, and I kind of dug in his cabinet. I was listening to a lot of that kind of stuff. So and then of course I myself very early on would retreat into my own little room with my headphones and disappear with the likes of Pink Floyd and all the progressive stuff, the weird stuff that that wasn't really. It was
so when I met you when you were in the 7th grade, you were listening to Pink Floyd. Is that what you're saying?
No, not necessarily then, but I'm just saying earlier on.
Here's the memory I have is when I first met Eric. I was someone that always hung out in the library. I was a voracious reader and consumer of information, but they also had a record player. They had a record player on both floors, so I used to listen to records all the time. And Eric and his cousin blew into town, into Dobbs Ferry, and they came into the library, and they went up there, and I don't know if you remember, but you and your cousin used to sing the soundtrack to West Side Story all the time.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I remember. I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is that he's singing.
West Side Story? Really?
I believe it was, yeah. Yeah, you guys were quoting it, and
are you sure it wasn't Grease?
No, it wasn't Grease.
We did Grease a lot.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yep. So Andy's checking in, which I'm going to go with his assessment is the older I get, the more I keep revisiting the old stuff like comfort food, right? So I don't consider the older stuff that I used to listen to guilty pleasures, right?
No.
Now Sean Grady is, of course, the Breakin' soundtrack. So we're gonna mail him some cardboard boxes, and he's gonna open them up and put them on the floor. And he's gonna start spinning, and he's gonna start popping and getting it done. Casey, loved the Doors growing up. As I get in my mid-40s, still love them, just not as much. Elizabeth, Free to Be You and Me, Marlo Thomas and Friends. That was something that a lot of kids in the 70s kind of listened to, that record and that whole thing. They played it in school and stuff like that. So for me, it was when I was young. The same type of thing. My parents, for some odd reason, were into country music, and so there was a radio station in New York called WHN on AM 1050 WHN, and my parents had that on every morning, and I was exposed to 70s like classic country, like Conway Twitty and Merle Haggard and Johnny Cash and all that stuff, and it just kind of like absorbed into my consciousness. I don't go out and listen to country music, but their influence was weird that way, but for me, AM radio, like 77 WABC was like when I was a kid, that was the thing, or 66 WNBC was the thing as well. So I grew up on that steady diet of AM radio.
Yeah, Brucey, and all those.
Evanston. So all that stuff was a steady diet of just that accessible music that you kids for the most part listen to, like pop, pop music, and that was the diet. So number 2, right? So let's go on to number 2. So if everybody could put in the chat, what are some music or artists that your friends or family don't know you're into that would surprise them that they found out that you listen to, like would be shocked, like, oh my God, I can't believe you listen, or you like that. I can't believe that, So let's see that. Let's see some of the surprise stuff, and maybe we'll learn a little bit.
Well, you go first this time.
I go first?
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't. I see. That's a hard one for me because I don't think I fall into that one. I don't think. It would surprise you. Like anything that I listen to, I don't think it would surprise you. I don't think it would be surprising because I do. I like hard rock stuff like The Cult. I like classical music. I like 60s. I like Herb Alpert. I like all types of music. Elizabeth, as an adult, a true guilty pleasure that makes my heart happy is the soundtrack from Juno.
Okay.
That was with Elliot Page and Michael Cera, which was a great film. A great film, by the way. So I'm not sure that number 2 I kind of fit into. I think I'm pretty much number 3. What about you?
Well, I kind of agree with that because it's like I said, I grew up listening to, exposed to all kinds of different types. You talked about country music. I have a story, too. My uncle used to go skeet shooting a lot at Bear Mountain and stuff. So we used to go with him, and he would be listening to that as well. So I was exposed to that kind of stuff as well. You probably were a little bit more surprised that I got it, that I like certain things that I liked, because we kind of came up liking the same groups and stuff when we first met. ELO and all these bands and stuff. But I was more into like every now and again I'd throw you a curveball, like you didn't know I like Pink Floyd at one point. You didn't know that I was really into Yes and these big bands and that kind of thing. So but yeah, other than that, I'd like to think that I could probably listen, at least try all types of different music, and not really feel guilty about it at all. It just you try to wear many different hats. There's certain types of music that I don't care for, but I respect it. Other people, especially if I know somebody else likes a certain group, So yeah, I'm with you on this one. I don't think I really fall. You guys that know me, let me know. you tell me, because I don't really,
Is Eric a hypocrite? Is he lying?
So yeah.
Oh, I spelled that wrong. Songs that your friends don't you like. Come on, no one saw that.
You forgot the no. Yeah.
No one saw that. Songs your friends don't know you like. All right. Anybody else want to jump in on that as far as songs that?
Well, I have a story, and I don't know if Kelly's gonna.
Wait. Hang on one second. We got a big one coming up. Andy. Oh. The only guilty thing I can say is I absolutely love 80s hairband music. I can't say that it's objectively good music, nor can convince any young person that it's actually good, but it's inseparable from my childhood. It was the soundtrack, so it will always be good. Funnily enough, I can tell it's not objectively good because when I hear a hairband song for the first time, now that I missed as a kid, you generally don't like it. So you are connected to the stuff you were listening to, but then when you kind of go outside of that, but into that era, right? When you go outside of the realm of songs that Andy liked, I guess what he's saying. But then if he heard something else from that era that he didn't know, he's like, no, this is just cringe. That's interesting. That's interesting. So that's really kind of.
I do have a story. I mean, I don't know if Kelly's going to jump on this because I don't think she'll remember, but. My brother was actually surprised that we were in the car one day. He got into the car. And she was driving. I guess they went to the store. We were visiting my parents and the Poconos or whatever. And the Allman Brothers were on. And my brother's like, "You like the Allman Brothers?" And he had no idea that Kelly was a fan. She's like, "Yeah, I love the Allman Brothers." Because. We're both into Tedeschi trucks, and I exposed her to some of the their stuff and that kind of thing. So yeah, that really surprised my brother big time. He's like, "Oh man," because he's a diehard Allman Brothers fan. Is that he just didn't know that of Kelly.
Yeah.
So that's because he wouldn't have pegged her to even listen to that music, much less like it. Like in that sense. So yeah. But,
and I think it's easy to pigeonhole everybody. Yeah. I think it's easy to pigeonhole people based on, like I'm the ELO guy, and that's what I'm going to be, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But then you get to find out some other stuff. Dwight, bringing up Eric. Remember when we saw 90210 show at the Garden, second row?
And I had no. How did you get those tickets?
He still wants to know.
I still want to know, because there's no way you could get tickets like that today. Second row center at Madison
He still
Square
does.
Garden.
Dwight still does.
He's got the connections.
Yes, Dwight still gets those tickets.
Yes, that was a great show, by the way. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that if you're known as an uber fan of something, like back in the day, Eric was Phil Collins and very much into Genesis, so that kind of almost forms like how you perceive that person. And I was the ELO guy, and
right.
Our friend Johnny was like the Stevie Nicks fan, and you kind of almost put yourself into a box in a weird way. And then when you're listening to something that's really not anything like, it's like, well, what are you listening to that for? I thought you were like the ELO guy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, but that's not all I listen to. I mean, I listen to it every day, but not all day.
The thing. So you got to explain
23
yourself.
hours I do.
Right. You got to be like, no,
I leave an hour for other music. I listen to ELO 23 hours a day, and I leave an hour for just other stuff, recreational music.
That's right.
All right, let's get to it then. I mean, we're left with guilty pleasures, right? The things that you will listen to, but maybe not readily admit. So, if a Taylor Swift song comes on and you're tapping your feet and you like it, do you immediately stop tapping your feet if someone? There's Nick. The Doors are still great. Absolutely. Is it something that you stop enjoying in front of somebody if they caught you listening to it?
I suppose it depends on the person, but that's the thing. It's like, I'm not afraid to
not afraid
things. There are certain, like, hey, I'm just going to throw it out there. A lot of songs from the 70s I still love to this day. The kind of songs that you hear everywhere. You go into a grocery store, it's on. You go here, you go there. I still love this stuff. I cherish this stuff to this day. I all the one-hit wonders of the 70s, and a lot of the soft rock that was that you heard on the radio. And I'm not talking about the big names like Eagles or Steve Miller Band or any of that. I'm talking about Ambrosia. I'm talking about Firefall, England Dan and John Ford Coley, Seals and Crofts, that kind of stuff that that not many people know who they are, but the songs that they're still but you hear everywhere. But so because you hear it in a supermarket, it's no longer valid. It's old, old music and something.
Yeah, or kitschy. It's very easy to throw like ABBA into that, like, oh, guilty pleasure. It's like, no, I actually am not embarrassed about ABBA. I love ABBA and I will defend ABBA. And ABBA was one of the greatest groups ever as far as pop music. So there is.
We did karaoke a lot in Florida, and ask anybody who went. We that went. Our group, Andy and Courtney and Kelly, and I was always doing those songs.
Here we go. We got a live one. There's certain gangster rap songs that I make sure I'm listening to with the windows up. If anybody caught me rapping Easy E at the stoplight, I'll probably sink under my seat. So there it is. He enjoys it. Andy enjoys it. But if you pull up, there we go. I want it that way, Backstreet Boys. But I'm not ashamed to admit it. You go.
That's the thing. You got to own it. If you like something, that's how I feel. You got to own it. You shouldn't be ashamed. You shouldn't, and that's why I even hate the term guilty pleasure. Let's just throw that out there, because I feel if
you're guilty about your pleasure.
You only feel guilty when people give you stuff about it. They make they make fun of you,
or you might
you're uncomfortable.
You might feel guilty because you anticipate that you'll get like a little back.
Sometimes you got
So I listened to Adele. There go Dwight. Saw her at the Garden a few years back and take a lot of flack for it. See, because Dwight is definitely known as like classic rock, hard rock guy. From our years of hanging out with him and all the concerts that I know he goes to. Adele would be outside of the realm of like what are you going to Adele for? How come you're not going to Billy Joel or something?
Personally, I think that's awesome. Because Kelly likes Adele. I listen to, therefore I listen to Adele. Yeah, I think she's great. There were times I listened to Barbra Streisand. Okay, I love Evergreen from A Star Is Born. I still love that song.
All right,
I love her rendition of Stony End. I dig that. So,
all right, so I'm gonna start putting on the ticker all the guilty pleasure titles. I think we should. I want to see what this kind of looks like. I'm going to put mine up second. I have besides that, which I'll get to. I do have a guilty pleasure song that I really, really like, and it's kind of like, but Bop by Hanson, I love that song, and that's my guilty pleasure.
I'll do you one better.
I love that.
I'll do you one better when it comes to that song. We perform that song.
Who's we?
Ask Andy. Andy and our friend CJ, and we actually performed that song. We would sing it. So there you go. I wish Andy
Neil
would
Diamond.
chime in. Neil Diamond. See, there you go.
Yeah. So I want it that way. For me, it's bop.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Let's hear. There's a bunch. Let's do it like this. Sean is I want it that way. Bop. See? What other guilty pleasure songs that you kind of like? So up for Andy. We're gonna put Easy E.
I don't know if it's a good guilty pleasure because I think it's a fantastic song, but I always stop in my tracks every time I hear it, and that's I'm Not in Love by 10cc. Every time I hear it, I stop dead in my tracks, and much to my delight, how cool that was to hear the opening bars of that song, Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
Guardians of the Galaxy, when they opened the movie with that, I was just that was amazing. But that's but it's a great song. But I don't know.
All right, here we go.
Today,
here we go. Jonas Brothers, Kinda Rule. Nick,
okay.
Eye of the Tiger.
There you go.
That's a great choice. I like that. That was before they had to change singers. That's a great one. All right, we're building a list here. So Sean, we've got some boy band for Dean. We've got boy band as well. for Andy, we've got some rap. For Eric, he's not in love. Sorry, anybody that's listening. And Nick has got the 80s covered with Eye of the Tiger.
Oh.
Nice. This might be a playlist in the making.
Okay.
Dwight. Mickey. Wow.
Oh,
that's a good one too.
Hey, you know what? Yeah.
That's a kill. You know what? I don't know anybody that's not tapping their feet to that song and not admitting to it. Right? I don't know anybody that's like when Hey Mickey comes on and they're not like trying to do like the cheerleading stuff. Pina Colada song.
There you go.
Nice. Rupert Holmes.
That's a great one.
Wow, that's a good one too. This is an interesting list.
Again, I bring up karaoke, but Kelly used to put in. Sometimes we put in like certain songs for each other as a kamikaze thing, and she always wanted me to sing Gordon Lightfoot, and I'm like, Gordon Lightfoot. But then it dawned on me, I'm like, why not sing Gordon Lightfoot?
Yeah, it's great. Unless you're going to sing the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which is it's like a 20-minute song, and it's so depressed. Everyone's going to be drinking they're going to be like crying at the end. So that's not made for karaoke.
I actually did. I tried to do Sam Cooke one time, and this woman. First they were starting to get into it, and then she came up to me and she's like, "Why are you singing such an old song?" I was like, because I like Sam Cooke. What do you want me to say?
There you go.
So again, you just, they wanted me to sing something hip, something, right, but Red Wine, Casey Bauer. All right.
Nice one. That's nice one. So Nick has a comment there. I want to put this up. It's and he kind of hit the nail on the head. If we're letting you know our guilty pleasures, are we guilty enough? So I guess that leads to another question, Nick. Is this the stuff that is there another level of stuff that we're not, that's even more hidden? Is there another level of, I'll put bop out there, but there's something underneath that I'm not ever going to reveal. Is that kind of what what Nick is saying, I think, is like, I'm guilty enough to give you bop, but I'm not guilty enough to give you something else. Andy, what?
Once when I made a playlist of theme songs of old Nintendo games to listen to in the car. I can't justify it. It was comfort food again. Awesome.
Yeah. I used to have the theme to Super Mario Brothers on my phone, and that's when I worked for Microsoft.
Jake would be very proud of you, Uncle Andy. That, you know.
Randy Travers, forever and ever.
There you go.
Amen. Interesting. This is great. This is some really. So that's Kelly. Whoops.
I thought for sure that she would say Eddie Rabbit because I know she loves Love a Rainy Night.
Love a Rainy Night? Oh, yeah. Eddie Rabbit?
Yep.
Brooklyn's own. I believe he was from Brooklyn originally, or Jersey.
That's funny.
Yeah, I believe it's either Brooklyn or Jersey.
Yeah.
Randy Travis. Cool. What else? Guilty. See, for me, the guilty pleasures are going to be newer stuff because, like we said, the older stuff, I'm really not embarrassed of because it's kind of like in my DNA. Right? It's what I'm what I'm made of. But
we've spent
it tends to be newer stuff.
Yeah, we spent an entire lifetime building that foundation, right? So this stuff is second nature to us. It's it is ingrained,
So it tends to be stuff I discover
Go-Go's, our lips
afterwards.
Are sealed,
our lips are sealed. Mm-hmm. So let me talk about this right here because this.
Okay,
Eric was asking about this. This is a guilty pleasure. This is something I would have difficulty admitting, but you know what? It's on. We're doing Facebook Live. So that behind me there is an artist known as Orion, and he's. I saw a documentary on Netflix about him, and he basically. Had the thankless job of naturally sounding like Elvis Presley. He was not an Elvis Presley imitator, but he sounds exactly like Elvis Presley. And after Elvis died, and he was trying to make it in country music, and after Elvis died, Sun Records picked him up, and they made him wear a mask as if Elvis had come back. Okay, so they made him he recorded all these albums, and these are all albums of original music. So he's not doing Elvis songs, but he sounds just like Elvis. And when I watched his documentary about his life, and you would think it's a blessing, but in his case it was a curse because he could not be appreciated as an individual artist. He had to wear this mask. Obviously it wasn't Elvis, right? But they were playing on that gimmick. They called him Orion, and he had to go out on tour like that and couldn't take the mask off in public. And even though obviously it's not him, he doesn't look like Elvis. If you could find the documentary, it might still be out there. Very compelling. So then I started listening because I'm like, wow, this guy does sound like Elvis naturally. I ended up picking up a couple of his albums, and it's good stuff. So you want to talk about a guilty pleasure? Orion is going to be the guilty pleasure. Here comes Andy. I'm never ashamed of what I like. I would just hesitate to admit certain things based on the artist. Like, who's going to say I love Gary Glitter after he was outed as a pedo? I've even kind of stopped talking about Michael Jackson in Mixed Company because I don't want to get into it with people, though I still love his music. So there's a different spin on it. Is this controversial? Is it in has things aged well? So Casey's his 8-year-old daughter loves Taylor Swift, so we must play it in the car. So basically, what I'm getting from Casey is that if his daughter loves Taylor Swift, he loves Taylor Swift. Right. Because that's what's going to be played in the car.
That's absolutely right.
So, but Andy makes an interesting point. Is maybe things haven't aged as well because of certain things, or
tastes.
Tainted. It's tainted, or tastes change, perhaps. That would make you say, well, yeah, I'm not really going to admit that. Or I'll give you another one, and Eric probably remembers. I used to be gigantic into the Village People. That's gigantic Village People fan. I love the Village People, and
I did as well. A lot of those songs were great.
Yeah, and so I was absolutely like a Village People fan. From when Cruising came out in the Navy and
Kelly
all
says
those.
No guilt there. No guilt.
No guilt.
Wow, it's good stuff. In fact, I liked a lot of, but that's again, the 70s was full of bands like that. You had all of these, like, Earth, Wind and Fire. They were on top, and they they had a lot of songs that were, but then there was other groups of that ilk that were just kind of like real, like, funky and with the clothes and everything. So it almost feel like you're, why do I like this kind of stuff? It doesn't really feel, it's not my wheelhouse.
Dream boy, dream girl. Yeah, I get that too, right? Because some of the stuff, like we talked about, you just mentioned, like Gary Glitter or Michael Jackson.
Yeah, Image.
Exactly, Image. So,
yeah.
And I think that's where ABBA kind of gets. Wendy sees it. Let's see. I think I see Paul Donaldson and the Haywoods behind you. There we go. I love anything by that band lineup from that album and farther on. See, Wendy, I actually bought this album behind me when I visited Eric. The last time I saw Eric, I dragged him to like whatever like Goodwill there was or whatever record shops there were. He's like, oh God.
Yeah.
And this was outside in a crate of like dollar records outside this like musty, it was like a musty bookstore. I'm like, oh my God, Paul Donaldson and the Haywoods. And Eric's like, Jesus. What?
I don't recall saying that, but okay.
Well, I saw it in your eye. I saw the eye roll.
Okay.
Partridge Family, I Think I Love You. Absolutely. I'll Meet You Halfway is another great Partridge Family song. And that's another thing, right? Like Partridge Family and the Monkees, like those quote unquote manufactured bands aren't real music type thing. Right. Wilson Phillips, Dwight hides those CDs. He hides them.
Well, Kelly will chime in with them too. She was a big fan. I know that. Oh, there you go. I think here she is. I think now you are not as exposed to things that could be guilty, but you are suggested things you like by the algorithm. So you have to really search to be exposed.
So I think that's YouTube is the YouTube algorithm. Yeah. And I'm absolutely guilty of going down the YouTube rabbit hole. I will say, I want to watch a Van Halen video. I feel like watching Jump. And then before you know it, I'm watching like this Romanian piano woman playing like Stairway to Heaven on the piano. Like, I don't know how it goes from that to what, like you just end up going from one thing to another. Return to Blue Corner. Sean Grady, that was Loggins and Messina.
Right before we logged on, I was watching the Bangles on YouTube. And it was a recent show too. It was like 2019. It was they were older and they were doing, and it was like looked like a sold out crowd in this big outdoor. It must have been a festival of some sort. But but
and Nick has the truth for us.
Milli Vanilli.
I know you all like Milli Vanilli and just don't want to admit it. I'm going to say, you know what? What I have to say to that, Nick, is blame it on the rain.
Yeah.
Nick, you know it's true. Bangles are good. Saw them at Playland. Rye Playland? Yeah, that had to be lean times because Dennis DeYoung played at Rye Playland as well, and that was kind of like that was the lean years for some of those. When you're at Playland, go see somebody because they're going to be big again in another 15 years when the cycle comes back around. It's like go see them if you can. It's true.
Well, I think we told the story when we first moved here. It was the first summer here in Frederick. Ambrosia played. It was right in Baker Park, which is this little park that we have right in the center of town. We didn't even realize it was Ambrosia because they started playing, we thought it was like a cover band and they were, well, all of a sudden I started hearing like, this is one song after another. I'm like, what's going on? And I looked over and I saw the sign. It was it was the band. I was
there
like,
you go. Even appearing in Frederick.
That's right.
Nightly.
That's right.
Yeah.
How about this? How about when you hear songs today that you think you liked just because you liked the way they sounded, or like some silly pop song back in the day, now has been sort of made cool by someone putting it in a screwball comedy of some sort, because now the song is cool again because it's hip with the new.
Well, who's
Anchorman and that kind of stuff.
Who's big on that is who's big for that is the Farrelly brothers. They would put these 70s and 60s pop like semi-obscure pop songs in their movies, like "Build Me Up, Buttercup," and other songs like that would all of a sudden everyone's like singing "Build Me Up, Buttercup" when that song was forgotten, like left in the dust.
And it's also like it's either that or songs from like the late 70s, like the sort of like psychedelic era, but there were still pop songs that when every time you see like a drug movie or if it's something like sexual or something, they put these songs in there and make them sound weird. So now they take on that tone of it being kind of trippy.
Yes.
I remember, I think I was watching, I think it was Desperate Housewives or something, an episode was on, and she was one of the women was like out for the count, and it was the Harper's Bazaar's, Feeling Groovy, their version, which is a little bit trippier than Simon and Garfunkel's. So, and of course it was made, strictly made just to be a trippy type of song, but you would never consider that, at the time, because
Yeah,
so
and I guess I guess that's one way to look at it, is stuff that was popular. I mean, everything that's in that crawl, if you look at the list, all that stuff is popular music.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing really in this crawl that is, Band of Gold. That is not a guilty pleasure, Jim. That is a great song by Frida Payne. I love that song. But if you look in the crawl, there's not anything in there that's like, I've never heard of this. Every song I'm looking at, probably everybody has heard of that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and we're gonna put Jim in there too, because that's a great song. Love Band of Gold. And so I think that might be a little bit of it too. Is stuff doesn't age well. So then it kind of falls out of favor, but everything is cyclical, right? Because I keep going back to ABBA. Everybody would make fun of ABBA, and then a movie came out called Muriel's Wedding, and then all of a sudden ABBA was kind of cool again, and then they adapted that movie into Mamma Mia, and then Mamma Mia 2. Now ABBA is cool but kitschy cool,
yeah,
right? And so it's kind of like coming to fashion. So you can kind of, if they were a guilty pleasure, it's like almost an accept, like, you could get away with ABBA because now all of a sudden everybody loves ABBA. There was a period where you hadn't heard from them, meaning no one was ever talking about them, but now they've kind of come back again. And in some ABBA news, I have some ABBA news to drop. They should be releasing by the end of the year 5 new songs. ABBA has gone back into the studio and is working on some new music. So I'm excited for that. That should be interesting because ABBA was one of the greatest bands of all time. I don't know if we'll ever get to an episode, but they absolutely were. They were absolute pop geniuses. So there's nothing guilty about my love for ABBA.
Well, how much of it too is though you like a certain artist, because frankly, because you got a crush on them. No,
I don't think so.
I know that's true of me with certain artists. Especially like an artist with a great voice. Like, then you watch old videos of that artist, and people like Linda Ronstadt. Which is really, she was great anyway. But but I'm thinking more along the lines of somebody like, Spanky in our gang. I forgot her name. What's her name in the band?
Her name in the group was Spanky McFarland, but that's not her real name. That's the name of Spanky, but that's what they called her. I forget what her real name is.
She has such an amazing voice, and then your first thing is to go look them up just to see what she looked like, and one thing leads to another, and so certainly that was true of Jewel. Kelly's a big fan of Jewel. I love. But let's face it, she's hot.
Right?
So that's a big part of it for me. But on the other hand, it's like, she does have some good stuff though.
Yeah. So Andy has a case of I think it's called reverse osmosis, which is when Billie Eilish came around, and Andy's daughter loved her and got into her too, right? And that's kind of what Casey was saying is like the Taylor Swift effect is your children are listening to stuff that you probably wouldn't be listening to, but it's on all the time. I'm sure with kids, totally there, and then you end up listening to it. She's so specific to teen girls that I would feel totally weird as a 44-year-old walking around the mall with a Billie Eilish shirt. She's awesome, but I can't tell anybody without feeling like a weirdo.
Yeah.
So I guess we kind of feel like maybe
Love Shack B-52s. There's nothing guilty about that. That's a great track.
So I think maybe we also maybe feel like we age out of certain things, like Billie Eilish is like. Andy almost is kind of I'm getting the impression like he feels like, well, I've got no business listening to this because this is really directed at kind of like Britney Spears, and for kids of that age, directed right at that type of audience. So someone at that time that was in their 40s or 50s were like, well, what are you doing listening to that? But if it's good music, it's good music, right? And that's the thing about someone like Billie Eilish. I mean, she walked away with like armfuls of Grammys. So I don't know that that's a guilty pleasure per se, right? Because she's really is like kind of, and even in Dwight's case, Adele. I mean, going to see Adele is kind of like she's a massive star, and even if you weren't known as an Adele fan, I wouldn't be surprised to hear anybody say, "Oh yeah, I went to go see Adele just because she was just on that level." Right, that level of stardom. So I think there's certain artists that
there's certain artists that I
can transcend it.
That I like, Lorde and Lana Del Rey. I think a lot of their stuff is great. Some of it's depressing, but yeah. I mean, it's just, but it's good music though. I mean, it's
Is Kiss a guilty pleasure?
I don't.
Are they on the borderline? I've never. Full disclosure.
Let's let Andy answer that question because he's a big Kiss fan.
So maybe I shouldn't say what I was going to say then. Sheriff, when I'm with you, used to love that song. Now, not so much. Now, yeah, not so much. Dua Lipa. Mm-hmm. Dua Lipa. Since Nick, I got to go back to this comment. Since Nick opened up, he kicked the door down. I'm not a big Kiss fan. I know that there are loyal Kiss Kiss fans, right? The Kiss Army. I mean, I like some of their popular stuff, and I just couldn't get into it.
You mentioned Kitsch, and Kiss they're unabashedly. There's no mistaking what they're doing. It's all about the kitsch. It's all about the show.
You think so?
And, yeah, absolutely. They'll admit that. So I don't think they ever really took themselves as that seriously. Some people do, but I think, but that's is
Andy. I'm moderately obsessed with Kiss, not fully, but again, it's mixed with childhood, right? When I was a kid, they weren't even human. It's right. Back then, Kiss was something that still wasn't seen that, but no one's ever really done it to the level that they did it at the time, and then continued. Like there are some bands that kind of do the makeup thing, but not to the level that Kiss does, and not you could see one of the Kiss faces and know. You don't have to know the names, you just need to know, oh yeah, that is Kiss.
Yeah,
that is absolutely Kiss. They are so synonymous with the image that they cultivated, but they cultivated that image since like the early 70s. So it's iconic. It is iconic at this point. It's so iconic that now, even though like Ace Frehley is not in the band and Peter Criss is not in the band, the members that play guitar and drums wear their makeup. So it used to be like when they changed members, like when Vinnie Vincent came on, he had like the Egyptian thing, and Eric Carr was the fox.
Yeah.
So they kind of gave different identities. Now it's almost like the character is the character, and whoever's behind the makeup is a hired person at this point, right? When you go see Kiss, you see the Ace Frehley character, meaning the makeup, but it's not him. It's whoever's there, and you don't see. I think it's Eric Singer now is the drummer. I don't know if he still is, but he wears the Peter Criss makeup. I don't know if I'm a fan of that, because those were so identified with. Ace Frehley, back then it was like Gene Simmons was the demon and Paul Stanley was the star child, but we're getting off the
I think it's more about the nostalgic aspect of it than, because they're still playing and they're still doing it. So that's the lineup that people remember. But yeah, it's true. They should have different identities for any new member, but I don't think anybody's really listening to a lot of their new stuff anyway. At this point in time, so I could
Dua Lipa rocks.
Rocks
and then Nick, yeah, rocks is the wrong word. quick amendment from Nick. So and that's the thing with, like I said, with stuff kind of being guilty. I think it's more like the second thing and the third. I don't think it's stuff that I listened to when I'm young that I disavow. And I know that there are some people that do that. We went to high school with some person that was heavily into Duran. And then I saw her at a reunion a couple of years ago. I'm like, yeah, remember you were into Duran Duran? She goes, I never liked them. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's in like your yearbook quote. Yeah. It's like, no, I'm into Metallica. I was like, well, no, you used to. Everybody knew it. It's like if I was the ELO guy, this person was like the Duran Duran person. So it's that's kind of strange to me. You can admit that you don't listen to it anymore, right? And like Dwight's saying, is some of the stuff that he used to listen to hasn't aged as well. But he's not disavowing it. He's not saying that never happened, right? He's not saying you're wrong. I never listened to that. So it's kind of kind of interesting that when you look back on the stuff, it's like, sure, maybe I don't listen to a lot of that stuff, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right.
I
don't actively listen to a lot of the bands that we listened to back in the day.
I know.
It's not every day that I listen to Styx.
I knew you were going to bring that up. I knew you were going to bring up Styx.
I don't actually put, when I go to sit down and listen to music, it's not going to be any of those bands. If I'm with you, like, and we start reminiscing, then that's when it comes on. But I'm not. It's not that I don't like it anymore, but you change, your tastes change over time. That has a lot to do with it, But again, I don't disavow them. I don't regret. I'm not ashamed of any of the shows that I've seen in the past or anything like that. It is what it is.
Yeah. Side note: Eric is coming up. I will see Eric in person next month. What he doesn't know is that when he's in the car with me, it's going to be Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass all the time. We are doing the whole discography, and I'm driving slow, so we're going to get it all. We're going to get the whole Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass
is that
discography.
Scare me or something, or I
don't know. It scares me.
Okay.
But so you know what, Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. That's one that people probably don't realize that I like. But then when I introduce people to Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, I play it. They're like, "Oh my God, I know that song. Oh, wasn't that song on the Dating Game? Wasn't this? Was that?"
Yeah.
So I think some of those guilty pleasure things that are more obscure, it's fun. I think it's fun to expose people. Dwight, I still listen to mainly 70s and 80s bands and continue to support them when they tour. Dwight absolutely does. I mean, Dwight was in our Billy Joel. In our Billy Joel episode, we talked about the residency. And Dwight, who I was thinking about when I mentioned that there's people that get tickets to that show all the time, and they're able to go, and I can't get a ticket whatsoever. But there are people that go and continue to support these artists as they continue to tour. So, yeah, is it guilty pleasure-ish stuff, or is it just good music? I think it's both. I think it can occupy both. I think guilty. It doesn't mean it's bad, because I don't think anybody would listen to a bad song and not admit to it. You just wouldn't listen to it if it was no good. Right. So and again, when you look at the ticker down below, these are all like I Want It That Way was a gigantic song in the early 2000s or late 90s, I believe. Bop was big in the 90s. Eazy-E, monster of rap. I'm Not in Love was a 70s staple. Eye of the Tiger was an 80s staple. Dwight, Mickey was an 80s pop staple. So was Pina Colada. So, I mean, these are all like almost like Sound and Casey, Red Red Wine by UB40. This is like, it almost seems like soundtrack of our youth. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, some people don't admit that and don't want to kind of be like, I don't really listen to that no more. And that's not me. And it's like, well, I think it's a part of you. I think it helps lead to where you end up.
And then when you listen to music. Wonderful thing about streaming services that you could actually, in private, it's right at your fingertips. You can put the stuff together, sit in the dark, and listen to it. Tears flowing down your face, whatever, and you have that ability to do that. Nowadays it's like so, and you don't have to tell a soul that you're doing this, but you're revisiting this stuff on your own.
Yeah.
Or not. I mean, you could be, in a social setting. I go up and I see my sister visit my parents, we're always playing these old songs, and we're sitting there and tears, tears come to our eyes, and remember that song? Yeah, we love it. We're having a grand old time with that kind of stuff. So I try to do that with every person, when I go see people and I visit, remember that, and we, just let it play, and that's
cool.
That's,
a funny story about that is last year when everything was going on, they started releasing, like, not loosening up, but I was able to go camping. Because last year, that was pretty much the only thing you can do that was like you weren't near people. It was outdoors.
That's right.
And you were okay. So I went camping, and on the way home, I put on Spotify, and it was just pulling up a random list, and a song came on that I had not heard since I was a child, and I forgot the song existed. You want to talk about a guilty pleasure? So when I got back home, and I called Beth, and I'm like, I played it for her. I said, do you remember this song? Because I remembered it vividly. And she's like, I never heard that song before in my life.
It happens.
I was like, it was so bizarre. And it brought back such a stream of memories, because I literally had forgotten that the song existed. Great. So, yep. Looking Glass, Brandy. Yep. And the name of the song was, and maybe someone else out there knows it, but it was the group was called the Amazing Rhythm Aces, and the song was called Third Rate Romance. And it turns out that it was a country song, and that's how I heard it. Is my parents were listening to country music. To me, I at the time couldn't differentiate that it was a country song or if I had heard it on AM radio. And then I literally heard it last year for the first time in probably 40-something years. Yeah. And I was absolutely blown away. What I did, though, this is what I love about music, is I went and checked out the whole album that song was on, and it's a great album. It's a great album. So I got to like get something new out of it. So Nick, you ever love a song and then one day you hear it as the jingle of a cheesy commercial, and now it's ruined because you love the song, but everyone now associated with that nonsense. Can't think of an example, but it happens all the time. Yep. It's happening recently. It's a Queen song. There's a Queen song that's being used in an ad right now, and I'm like, just stop. Like,
I Want to Break Free.
Was it?
Yeah, I've heard that in commercials. I Want to Break Free.
It was something, yeah. What bothers me more, yep. what bothers me more is when they have someone else sing it. Like, they can't get the rights to the original version, so they got to get like these, studio musicians to do it. I'm like, just don't. Not a love song, but I love Donna Summer's Hot Stuff. Was used by Chef Boyardee. Yep. Actually, there's an ELO. Now it's very popular. So we're not going to get on an ELO tangent, but it's very popular now to use ELO songs everywhere. But back in the day, there used to be a commercial for the coffee. You're the coffee generation, and they used a song called "Hold On Tight," which is an obscure, not one of their big hits, but it was like, you're the movers, the shakers, the coffee generation, and they used the song "Hold On Tight" by ELO. I'm like, what? What are you doing? I Want It All. That's one of it too. I Want It All is like a car. I think it's a car commercial, Sean. Yeah. That they use I Want It All in or something. But at least they're using the actual version. When they have to like get someone to do it, or they use they record an instrumental version of a Beatles song without the vocals, and they use it in a commercial. So it's like, what is that, like obla di obla da without the words or something? I'm not sure. It's like one of those.
Even if they do use the song, it's always they just play the chorus, or they keep repeating that line.
Sure, whatever line associated.
You never hear the verses. You never hear anything else. But it's like it's completely out of context most of the time.
There could be a song about killing somebody, but if there's a line in it about driving in the sunshine, you just hear like the driving in the sunshine. You don't hear like the guy killed somebody after he got out of the car.
That's right.
They'll just cherry pick like, this line is perfect for our commercial. We just want this part, but the song's about killing somebody. Yeah, but this line is just about them driving in the sunshine, and we want that for our.
That's the hook.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's interesting too. You know what? I mean, guilty. I think that we should do something about commercial jingles that are guilty pleasure. I think those would be more guilty pleasures, like commercial jingles that get stuck in your head and you end up singing them all the time, which are just kind of like. That's kind of the guilty pleasure stuff, because I also, when you go down the YouTube rabbit hole, I end up watching videos of commercials from like the 80s and the 70s.
Actually, I for me, it's television theme songs. That's another good one too.
Yeah, Bargain by the Who was a car commercial.
Well, the Who was used.
I called that a bargain. The best I ever had.
That's right.
Which car? Hyundai. Yugo.
Well, every CSI show has a Who song, and I don't understand that at all. But
it's got to be something. I
can see Who Are You, but everything else, I don't get that. I can See for Miles. Like what?
That could be a car. That could be for a car too.
I'm sure.
I can See for Miles.
Yeah, the Who were big.
Here we go. This is it. Nick always has like the definitive word on things. He's like the last word. The SNL Cowboy skip ruined Don't Fear the Reaper. Because now you listen for the cowbell in the original song, and and if it's not as pronounced, you're like, well, I don't really hear it. Or instead, you're not listening to the song because you got a fever, and the only prescription
is more cowbell. I love that skit. It's one of my favorite skits of all time. But equally, I get what he's saying, but I still love the song. I could listen to that song.
I'll
separately.
I'll flip. Let me flip that. Let me flip Nick's statement. Do you think that actually elevated that song? Because Don't Fear the Reaper was kind of like it wasn't a big 70s song. It was big for Blue Oyster Cult, right? But once that skit came out, everybody, I'm sure if you went on iTunes that week,
you couldn't
Don't Fear the Reaper was probably killing it.
It definitely, it couldn't help to be caught up in the new, that cast of SNL at the time. They were all popular. Will Ferrell was just on fire. So it was a joy to have a song like that be sort of immortalized, as it were. But then if you really want to get into it, every song on the Anchorman soundtrack is that way too, especially, Afternoon Delight.
Yep.
That's one of my guilty pleasures there.
So they brought that one. They brought that song back. I think what I need to do is we'll probably do like a Catch Me If You Can episode or something like that. I'm sure we'll do that, but not until I get my Christopher Walken impression down. So I'm going to work on it. Like, we're not going to do it until I'm ready, and I'm going to do the whole episode like that.
But guilty pleasure again. Guilty pleasures for me. Also, like I said, TV shows. Starsky and Hutch theme, Miami Vice theme. I had the soundtrack to Miami Vice. I'd play that song.
Theme from SWAT.
Theme from SWAT.
You know what's a great one?
Beretta.
Beretta, Streets of San Francisco.
That's right.
Hawaii Five-0. There's a lot of great stuff. I would think those might be more. Actually, you know what my favorite is, and this is a guilty pleasure, and we're gonna do. Damn it. we want to do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do a top. We're tossing around doing a top 5 of like top 5 songs that you crank when you're driving, right? Like top 5, like fit. Like you crank it or you're gonna play it twice. One just came to me when this song comes on like one of my, I don't know if I had it on my whatever MP3 player or whatever. The theme to the Rockford Files.
Yeah.
I crank that. If I'm in the car, and that comes on, I'm cranking the theme from the Rockford Files. Like Mike Post. But you got to get the recording in the beginning.
You got to get the right, because with every season it's a different variation. It's a different. You got to get the right one with the horns. With that French horn. At the end. Sometimes they don't do that, but they're like each season.
Well, isn't it a guitar? It's like wham, 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 wham. Don't they use a guitar sometimes too?
But they do. But yeah, sometimes whatever. It's a different. It's not the right version. I want the Odd Couple was the same way. They had a different variation of the theme. And there were certain times there were like the drum was like real jazzy and the drummer was just going off on but then there are other times where it's just less pronounced and that kind of thing. So
and you know what the funny thing is? It just dawned on me, especially when everybody's putting in everyone's putting in MASH, Greatest American Hero theme.
Yeah.
Songs from back in the day, because I'm old and you're the same age, so you're old as well.
Thank you.
I'm just making it clear, in case if you didn't know. But like back in the day, theme songs from TV shows and stuff like that used to go on the charts. Does that still happen? Like the theme from SWAT was like the 70s show SWAT was like a #1 theme.
You're right.
and some of these other songs, like "Greatest American Hero" by Joey Scarborough, that was like a hit, like on the radio. Right. The theme from Happy Days was a hit on the radio. Mm-hmm. If I'm on the highway and Tom Petty, running down a dream, that's a driving song. That's a driving song and a half. Theme from Friends. That's that. You know what, Nick? Again, the guy's got the damn last word. That might be like one of the last TV show songs that ever was a hit. Like, was there stuff after that was made for it? Not something like that they used in Dawson's Creek and was a hit, but the theme from Friends was written for the show, and that was by that was not the Rembrandts. Jesus, what the hell was it? I can't remember who it was offhand. Maybe was it the Rembrandts? I think that was the name of the band, perhaps, but. That might have been like one of the last TV shows where the theme song was a hit. A lot of shows don't have theme songs anymore, or it's just like atmospheric.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, they just play like two bars or something, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering. Yeah. I'm wondering why the theme from the X-Files wasn't a hit.
What I used to love. You would listen for it. You couldn't wait for that teaser to end so that you could hear the theme song, because that was part of it, right? It got you going, So then you're totally engaged. I got the theme song. Now I'm back into the episode,
Yeah, I don't know that happens anymore. That used to be like TV show theme songs was like a popular thing. It was like we knew those songs because they did play them on the radio. Like you would hear that kind of stuff on the radio. Even the Dukes of Hazzard, right? That song "Good Old Boys." I mean, that was something they played on country.
I brought the 45 to that.
Yeah, they absolutely, and that's. I would say that might be more of a guilty pleasure, is because that's kind of stuff. I guess people say, well, that's not really music, but it is. And it's probably even harder because you're making. Yeah, My Life Was Used on Bosom Buddies, but it wasn't the Billy Joel version. I can tell you that much. Mm-hmm. That was recorded by
Yeah, someone that sounds a little like Billy Joel, but it's
Billy Joseph. It was Billy Joseph. I remember watching that show, and I'm like, that's not Billy Joel, and they didn't sound that great.
But before needle drops became a thing for movies too, score music I was a huge fan of just putting on the soundtrack to Star Wars and just playing the whole movie out in my head. The music was fantastic. I could listen to a scored album that way and enjoy it as I'm enjoying. Like it's just like an album.
And some of those things used to be hits. Some of those themes, even back in the 60s, more so like themes from movies.
Yes.
A Summer Place or whatever. Some of those things would become hits, but it's kind of
Wonder Woman, Nick Lachey.
Love Boat, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Bosom Buddies. Pete Scolari. Pete Scolari on Bosom Buddies. He got left in the wake of Tom Hanks. Poor Peter Scolari. Although you know what. Tom Hanks did throw him a bone, because when Tom Hanks made That Thing You Do, and the group The Wonders was going to be on like the Hollywood premiere showcase or whatever, Pete Scolari was like the host. The guy was in it for like literally like 2 lines, but I'm like, all right, at least you did something for the guy, Pete Scolari.
Well, he's shown up in like TV shows.
Who would ever thought like a show where 2 guys are dressing up as women. Right? Whoever thought that a guy that's on a TV show where he's dressing up like a woman, like a woman, would win 2 Oscars?
Well, it happens.
Because back then, TV stars did not make that leap. Right? When you were on TV, you were like a TV star. It was very difficult to transition into movies. Right? That was like the thing. That's why a lot of movie stars didn't want to do TV shows, because they didn't want to.
I feel like comedians often do, because they start out making that transition from a skit show
probably easier,
sitcom, a little bit easier, because they're still being goofy and but then somewhere along the road they always make that drama.
Yeah.
And in the case of Tom Hanks, I mean, he just
happened with Rob. You know what happened with Robin Williams as well? He was Mork, which you couldn't get a goofier character.
Right.
Hanks on Family Ties too. Mm-hmm. Right? Wasn't he like the alcoholic uncle or something like that? Wasn't he on Family Ties? He played a lot.
No, that's right. You're
scumbag.
Right. But he always played that goofball. Either that, or he was the straight man in certain movies, and everybody else was the goofball. And then I think, what was it, Philadelphia? That all of a sudden, boom! He became dramatic, Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, it's just that one. It's that one thing.
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart. When was he on TV?
No,
Oh.
I compare Tom Hanks to Jimmy Stewart. He's
absolutely, absolutely. That everyman character that he kind of cultivated, and but who had difficulty was someone like Tom Selleck. Guy was made for movies, but he was known as Magnum PI, and he tried to kind of get into movies, but he wasn't finding the right vehicle. He was in that I think it was called The Aviator or something like that. He was in that weird film, and he tried to do a couple of other things. He did a couple of good movies like An Innocent Man and Quickly Down Under, but he didn't transition the way that you thought it would, and that was like that TV curse, And then Pierce Brosnan got kind of shafted on that because he was on Remington Steele, and they were going to cancel Remington Steele, and then they wanted him for Bond, and then Remington Steele's like, oh, no, we're gonna keep making this now that you want him. It's now we have a hot commodity.
Both those shows were great, by the way.
There you go.
And Remington Steele. So
he turned down Indiana Jones. If you want to, Sean, if you go on YouTube and you type in under YouTube Tom Selleck deep fake Indiana Jones, they put his face on it, and it's good. It looks good.
He didn't turn it down. He was actually offered the role, but he couldn't do it because of his obligation to Magnum PI.
To Magnum?
That's right.
Didn't they offer wasn't Richard Dreyfuss offered Raiders also? He wasn't?
No, I never heard that. I never heard that. It was Tim Matheson. I know he tried out for the role.
Johnny Quest?
Johnny Quest.
He's the voice of Johnny Quest. What?
All right, we're getting off track here.
We're already off track.
Now we're talking about actors and stuff. It's not guilty pleasure.
Yeah, no, that was well. These are guilty pleasures though, because it's it's just one of those things like TV shows and movie themes, and it's a big thing. But yeah, I for some reason I don't know why Dreyfuss was in my head that they had thinking about him for Indy, because he worked with Spielberg more. He worked with him on Jaws and Close Encounters, so he was in that wheelhouse.
Yeah, but I don't think they had him in mind.
He's not a rough and tumble guy, but he's kind of.
No. It was
stop playing with yourself, Hoopa.
No, it was Spielberg who said Harrison Ford first, and he was like, Lucas was like, no, I don't want him to be like another Robert De Niro to Martin Scorsese. I don't want him in every one of my movies. So
too late.
So then they thought about Tom Selleck, and they were going to go with Tom Selleck, but then they wouldn't let him go. They weren't even sure if the show was even a hit or not at the time. And they were just like, because he was such a hot commodity. Nope, you can't have him. And that's what. That's
happened. That did with Remington Steele. Nick, Broadway songs. I am not ashamed to admit I like them. That's interesting. That's interesting because Broadway, the songs are usually big and showy and not really, for the most part, relating to popular music that you would listen to. If you listen to hard rock, you'd be hard pressed. Pun. You'd be hard-pressed to find music that equates to that on Broadway. Maybe nowadays more so that they've embraced that kind of a thing where you could almost see a rock show. But if you're talking something like, Cats or Jesus Christ Superstar, or any one of those classic musicals, that doesn't relate to contemporary music that you'd be listening to in your spare time. That's a very interesting Nick, man. I'm telling you. I gotta send you. I gotta send you a link so you could be like the third person on the screen, because we need you. We need you helping out here.
I seem to recall you having a Disney soundtrack or two.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Jungle Book.
We talk about. No, I'm talking about Aladdin. I think I'm pretty sure you had. Soundtrack
I had Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch soundtrack. Jungle Book soundtrack, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those were some great. It's just great music. At the time, Beauty and the Beast, when that movie came out, everybody was listening to that. Yeah, the Aladdin soundtrack, that might as well be a Broadway show because it became one anyway. Mm-hmm. Dear Evan, how much do you pay? How much do you want? You can have one of these. We'll get one made for you. That's it. That's all we can offer. That's a good point. Is Broadway shows is kind of an outlier where it's a type of music that doesn't really kind of fall into what people would normally listen to.
I was here's a big guilty pleasure. The soundtrack to Footloose.
Yeah.
Me and my sister love that soundtrack. We just, I love the song.
I have a guilty pleasure. I just remembered it, and we'll start to close out because we're already like an hour and 15 minutes in. I have an absolute guilty pleasure. And it's, yeah, this one's a good one. Okay. Back in the 90s, Garth Brooks was going to make a movie called The Lamb. And it was about this rock star, and something happens to, like, he has an accident or something. Like they were making they were going to make a film, this film called The Lamb, and he was going to be in it. What he did is he adopted the persona of the character and made an album based of that character in advance of the film, but the film never got made. So this album came out by Garth Brooks, and it's called In the Life of Chris Gaines, and he's got like long black straight hair. I love that album. I bought that album. I bought that CD, and I consumed it because it was kind of like him. It was almost like when an artist wants to go do, like a rock artist wants to go do jazz, and they go through their jazz period. This was him doing like pop and kind of rock music, and having an outlet to do it. And everybody, he got really dragged for it. But Chris Gaines, In the Life of Chris Gaines, and that is, I really like that album. And you never hear it's talked about it as a misfire, it's a mistake, it's a joke, he should have never done it. It's like the one Garth Brooks album I have and would listen to. Yeah. It was like bold, it was ambitious, it was daring for him, and it was a head scratcher. It was Tom Selleck and Peter Coyote. Peter Coyote, I love him. That was offered the Indiana Jones role. Yeah, Peter Coyote was in Invincible with Helen Slater and Christian Slater and Keith Gordon. He was the cop that was chasing them across country. I love Peter Coyote. I love his name. That's Peter Coyote. It's just a great name. They did do it behind the music.
Remember him as the man with the keys from E.T.
That too. Yeah. He was the sympathetic. They did do a behind the music about Chris Gaines. In the promotion to it, VH1 did a behind the music about him as if he was an artist, like his history. I remember that he had like a car accident and it came back. And they treated this whole thing seriously, like he was a character. Yeah, absolutely. So if that will do it for me. That's going to be the guilty pleasure, is Garth Brooks in the life of Chris Gaines. He
performed on SNL as the
character. He did, as Chris Gaines.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he had that song. He had that song called
One Eye, and it was kind of almost a glam rock kind of thing going on. Like he had makeup on, and
the song was called Lost in You. It was a really good song. It was very un Garth Brooks-ish, and maybe that's what I liked about it. But do you have anything to close out? A final guilty pleasure that you've been waiting to uncover?
No, I think I'm good.
That's it? Nothing you're going to admit?
That was it. Like TV shows, things like that. That was like my,
that one just came to me. So, we've kept everybody over a little bit over our hour, but we always appreciate it. And we always appreciate your support. It means so much. We are on the precipice of another milestone as far as downloads. We are very close. So we'll be sharing that. We've got some more fun stuff on the way. We're going to do some more giveaways as well, because that was a lot of fun. It's just fun to interact, and and it's kind of a way to prove that you're listening by asking you questions about the episode. Then we can prove that you actually listened to it. That's just a self validation for me. It's like, oh, you did actually do it. So, but we enjoy. We absolutely value it, and we enjoy it. And like I said, give us ideas for some of that stuff. We have another top 5 coming. We've got a special guest. We tried to record an episode on Monday with a very special guest, but my fault. My internet was just not up to the task, and our guest has graciously agreed to reschedule. We're going to keep that a secret until we actually get it done. But if you've got something that you're passionate about and you'd want to come and hang, let us know, and we'll see if we can figure something out, because having guests and having different points of view is always fun as well.
Yep.
So that's going to do it. We appreciate everybody. I say it a lot, but we really do. It's just something that Eric and I are having a blast doing, and doing the live shows are a lot of fun because we get to interact, and we get to kind of get your feedback and talk about it. the next evolution is to get people to join us dynamically through, like send out a link, have someone come on, give us their guilty pleasure, jump off and have somebody else come on. I think that's the next evolution, is really getting getting people on in video too. We just got to make sure we can facilitate that so it doesn't kind of get all laggy and whatnot, but that's what we're looking at. So we are going to thank everybody for joining us again tomorrow. I got to do the plugs. Follow us if you're not following us on Instagram, go ahead and hit us up on Instagram as well. Obviously, if you're on Facebook, you hopefully are already following us. Tomorrow, we have the Queen episode coming out, where Eric and I talk about one of our very favorite albums, which is Queen, The Works. And then as an adjunct to that, we also go into their performance at Live Aid, because you really can't talk about one without the other. So we will be talking about that. Spread the word. If you like what we're doing, just get somebody to try one out. A lot of people just are like, what's this podcasting thing? What is it? And tell your friends it's kind of like a radio show that you can listen to whenever you like, and it'll be there when you get out of the car and you resume, so you won't miss it. It's not like listening to the radio where you leave and then the song is over. So we appreciate you. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate you joining us again, and we will be doing another live one in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Casey, so much. I appreciate all the feedback. I love the conversation. I love hearing about music that other people like and how it affected them, and the effect that Taylor Swift had on Casey, and same thing on Andy. How your children are affecting what you're listening to now, and that takes you on a different journey as well. So we appreciate it. We're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody. We will see you very soon. And don't forget, again, plug tomorrow. Go check out Queen, The Works. Spread it. When you see our posts, if you would share it, that's the biggest thing. That's the easiest thing you could do, is if you're not into whatever episode we have, if you could share it on your timeline and at least get it spread, you'd be aces in our book. We would really appreciate it. So thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a great night. Everybody stay safe.
Bye, guys. Take care.